welcome back to my channel. This is Becky, and before I go into some of the more research that I have of tips and tricks for you when you're out there navigating the social world, I just want to take a minute to say thank you again for being so patient with me as I create this online platform and this channel. And I really want to do my ancestors proud, and so there's a lot of things that I do behind the scenes and trying to balance it with the actual work of, creating this online community and platform and take on this leadership role in even a bigger way. I'm like I've said in a previous video, the human was designed to have a community of about 150 people and have like a tribe, right? Or the Native Americans would have had smaller tribes that lived near each other, but it would have probably only been about 150 people. And then they would have to travel, for seasonal gatherings and ceremonial things of like being able to find a partner and for marriage and stuff that outside of your tribe. And there's a lot of that community type of social structuring that we've lost in the United States, particularly. I can't really speak from anywhere else. Guatemala, the families were still very united and kind and caring and compassionate and, worked together to try to help each other. And so with God helping me go through this spiritual awakening, I mean, I've been through many, but this one is like the big one where God said, all right, you have done such great service for God and man and country and humanity that the ancestors have said, we need you to have a bigger voice. So we're going to move you to a wider audience. You are going to be seen and heard. Your voice will not continue to be ignored and denied and stomped on and stifled and all of that stuff. This is the rising of the divine feminines. And so I just want to say thank you for everybody's patience as I go through all my healing trauma journeys and process everything that's going on, because it's really hard when you are taught to love unconditionally and to take care and honor your mother and father, and then here you are half a century later realizing all the lies that had been done all along. And in the end, all the love that I gave and the kindness that I gave, it all comes back to me in one way or another. Health, wisdom, clarity, guidance, mission, purpose. And so I want to be able to be a guiding light for others to see that they aren't doing it wrong. They are right where they're supposed to be. They're learning the lessons that they need to learn in order to learn how to rise their vibration, elevate their consciousness. And I'm just blessed that my ancestors have chosen me out of all the bloodline to be able to have this platform. And the more I learn about business, because I've always had handlers, I've always had guys in suits that forced me to do what I didn't want to do but needed to do because of money and whatever, social stuff. Now that I'm unplugged from the matrix and really standing firm in my purpose, I'm able to help other women who are struggling to be able to strategize and to understand and to cope with things. I can help with co-regulation of the nervous system and just a lot of things that I can assist people with in many different ways. And so if you would like a free consultation, go ahead and email me at homans.consulting@gmail.com so we can have a free consultation and I can see what's going on with you and how I might be able to help. All right, so let's take a look. This one is stop talking and they'll reveal themselves. So I know I talk a lot on these videos and you can hear the energy and it kind of like flows out. And because most of the time I'm not talking, most of the time I'm by myself, most of the time I'm in my own little world. I've said to people before, and I don't know if I've said it in a video, that the women in my family are really like beta fish, where we all do better in our own little fishbowl, kind of being our own creatives and doing things in our own way. And so I am very blessed that God has always kind of watched over me while I'm, moving around on the 3D earthly plane. But I had to learn to stop talking. And when you know that people are doing things that are against God's laws or against cosmic laws, it's really hard to bite your tongue. And so a lot of times when I would try to give the warnings ahead of time and they would get offended and upset or say I'm projecting, and I'd be like, okay, well, I just deliver the messages. What you do with that information is up to you. God said you are a voice for the voiceless. That means speak up, let people know, go directly to the source, make sure they're aware of their own issues, allow them to tell me what my issues are so that way I can take and go back and reflect. They can go back and reflect. And then hopefully you can both make progress in your own directions, right? A lot of times the people that are coming to me for help, they're at a crossroads of some sort. The last gentleman that I ran into that I had helped out on the street, just because that's how I am. I just help people everywhere I go, right? He was severely traumatized after losing the love of his life. He's an older gentleman. And he had always wanted to be a pastor. Well, temporarily he was homeless because of the depression that he had been in from losing his beloved wife. And so I was able to just happen to be in a similar situation where God was moving me around for my safety. And I'm just going, all right, God, I'm blind here, but I trust you. And my ancestors say, go here to this park and hang out here and just relax and meditate. And then I came across this older gentleman. So we started talking, and it just really reinforced to me that every interaction that I'm ever in, it is a divine intervention. And so for this gentleman, he was sitting there kind of contemplating, what his life's kind of paths. He had wanted to become a pastor because he had been that with his wife. They worked together, and so in his belief system he needed to have a wife in order to be a pastor. And I don't know what the rules are, but maybe that's a legit rule. You have to be married to be a pastor. I don't know. So he was discussing his options, and I was just quietly listening and smiling, and because that's what I do. And then I just asked him, I said, would you like a woman's point of view? And he's like, yes, I really would. And so then I gave him what the Holy Spirit told me in that moment. It said, okay, clarity of what I'm seeing based on what you're telling me is you're coveting your neighbor's wife, wishing that you had her because she was your deceased wife's best friend. And that makes sense. I understand that she is now coming on to you and wanting to leave her husband, and now that's put you in a huge moral dilemma as someone who wants to stay true to your faith and be in alignment with God's plan. So I told him, he did say the other option that he had was to move away and go take a position leading a big church, but he was not willing to go do that yet because he still had some habits. He had smoked cigarettes that he felt like he needed to get rid of, and so he just had some things that he just didn't feel good enough to step into that calling that God's led him to. And so I just gave him some more words, and I said, well, think of it this way. God doesn't reward us unless we take leaps of faith and we take risks, because fortune favors the bold. And so if God has put it on your heart that you are to go be this pastor of this big congregation, well, maybe God wants you just to take the step of going there, accepting that calling, and then maybe he's got a wife there waiting for you, right? Like, you don't know. So one of the things that I try to do is infuse more childlike wonder and curiosity, because believe me, I have been sucker punched by the cosmos and life and the universe so many times that I don't even want to go outside. I'm just like, I'm not going out there because I'm going to attract all this horrible stuff, and I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to stay here in my little bubble, be comfortable, content, make my little videos. It's all good. And God's like, no, honey, that's not how it's going to work. We are always having to grow and evolve and push ourselves forward. So this is just a temporary season, and before long, I'll be moved again. And so you have to have a sense of true detachment, right? So what I've just learned is what I think I know. I don't care that I have bachelor's degrees and master's degrees, and I've, rubbed elbows with some pretty important people. Ultimately, I needed to just listen. And it reminds me of, there's two sisters, and I'm sorry, I am not great with always the word recall because my brain has been under so much trauma that it takes some time for that communication piece with me. So thank you for your patience. But there were two sisters that Jesus had gone to visit. And if you remember the sisters' names, if you could put in the comments, I would love that. But I know one sister was just bogged down with all the responsibilities. Like, she wanted to make sure the house was clean before Jesus got there. She wanted to make sure all the food was, prepared. And so she spent more time focusing on what she was doing. And her the other sister, she spent most of her time engaging in conversation with Jesus while he was there. She was like soaking in all the wisdom and the knowledge that he was offering. But what happened was the sister that was doing all the responsibilities became very bitter and like resentful and kind of angry at the sister who appeared to be like slacking in the duties and not pulling her own weight in doing things to honor and serve Jesus. But what Jesus was trying to then kind of make the point that he said, listen, as much as I love all that you're doing and all the stuff that the food's fantastic, it's so good, and the house is immaculate, but you missed out on the true teachings because you were so distracted by what you were doing that you missed out on hearing the words of wisdom that your sister now has. So I have a sister that I grew up with who is a year younger than me, and so I was always put in this maternal role over her. So if she did something wrong, then I would get the spankings or the whoopings or the, whatever food taken away, whatever it was, because I was older and I knew better and I should have stopped my sister from doing X, Y, and Z. Now, I was always angry at that because I'm like, why am I being physically punished for what she's doing? But then what I realized was now as an adult was a lot of times I would then try to get my sister caught in the act, or I would try to tell my parents, listen, she's doing this. She says she's going to kill me. And then they would just say, no, she's so cute, sweet, innocent. She doesn't hardly, she doesn't have a hurtful bone in her body. And, just whatever excuses, that they would make. So then I would get infuriated because I was being devalued, dehumanized, put in a position where I was bearing the brunt of things, protecting my sister. And then it just became my identity. It just happened so much that it was always well, I'll just give it to Michelle. Michelle is the golden child that everybody loves. So even if I try, they're going to take it away from me and give it to her because that's how it's always been. And so now I can look back and I can realize, well, it was a two-way street, just like with the sisters with Jesus, right? The one sister should have been doing more to help her other sister be able to lighten her load so she could also sit there and listen to Jesus. But the other sister didn't have to be so OCD and make sure that every dust cobweb was swept up, because Jesus didn't care about that stuff. He would have been fine with, some glass of water and, a simple meal. It didn't have to be this 5-star, echelons type thing. And so I think those stories really are still relevant into today's situations. So let me go back to this one I have written down, and it is, stop talking and they'll reveal themselves. You are not where you think you are, and you are not talking to who you think you're talking to. This is very useful, and it's purely practical. If someone isn't listening to you, you should watch for that. And I think I took this from a Jordan Peterson. I think that's what his name was. very, very intelligent man on understanding and recognizing demons, and as well as understanding the free will, that I cannot tell anybody what religion or what to believe or that is not for me to say, because I don't know their karmic debt. I don't know what their soul blueprint is. I don't know what beings are occupying that vessel. So I just offer grace and unconditional love, and I just keep it moving. So if somebody does have bad intentions for me, well, I didn't do anything to poke that bear. I just keep it on moving because I learned to stop talking. If someone isn't listening to you, you should watch for that. And if you're not listening, you should stop talking and you should start watching like a hawk. Now, I've been hunted by very powerful men in very powerful positions most of my life, and I just have come to accept that that is a part of being in a carbon-based vessel on this planet. I don't get caught up on like the ancestral history of like slavery and all that kind of stuff, and I'm not gonna debate it, because my philosophy is every classification of human species, whether it be African, whether it be Asian, whether it be German, Native American, they all have some sort of Holocaustic type, slavery type storylines. So for us to get into these like racial type of tensions, it really is works of the devil, because we're all on the same planet and we all need to be working together, and we already know that they're harvesting our energy. So the more that they can get us worked up, well, then the more evil can stay in control. So you want to be careful, because the more information that you're sharing, the easier it is for them to hunt you and stalk you and rape you and murder you and kill you and take everything that you are given by God, right? Like your birthright. So I try to help people learn how to use their third eye to do more decision making instead of being reactionary and impulsive, because we only allow pain to be part of our personality if we allow it, and the devil only wins if you quit. So you got to keep going, and then God will bless you with all of the fruits of your labor, but you have to be willing to do the labor. You can't shortcut, you can't cheat, you can't use black magic and think that you're not going to suffer the consequences for it, because the rewards of that type of gameplay is short-lived, short-sighted, and very painful. I mean, your highs, your lows, and it's severe, and most people don't survive that. So I like to teach people temperance, enjoying what God and the universe gives you in any moment, because it can be taken away in any moment. So even here, I know that I'm invading on someone's space, someone that I adore and love. And so I'm not going to do that long term, right? So I feel like I get these little moments in time with people, and I just want to make it the best possible experience before God moves me somewhere else. And so I always live every day as if I'm dying, because we are. I think the saying is, this is the oldest you've ever been and the youngest you'll ever be again. And age really is a state of mind. I have seen very youthful 90-year-olds, and I have seen very miserable 90-year-olds. So when you're doing respite care, you really do get to see how the choices that you made in your life really do impact that end of life, because by the end of life, you're trapped inside your own mind. And you're going to be trapped with whatever past you've had. So if you've made bad decisions, well, you're going to be reflecting on those bad decisions. But if you've had good experiences, well, man, you get to sit there and dwell on the happiness and the joyful moments. So we really do get to decide our mood and our state of mind and our ability to, I don't want to say brainwash ourselves, but it is, using mantras and positive affirmations and subliminals to really reprogram yourself to have a sunnier disposition. When you start watching like a hawk, well, that's when people become revealed to you. And in fact, that your understanding of this situation is radically insufficient. So when I started shutting up, because I would tell people 1,000 times, I'd be like, oh, I wouldn't do that if I were you, because, there's a chance you're going to get caught. I don't think that I would even risk that, because the consequences could be A, B, C, or D, and I don't like any of those consequences, so no thank you. But when you start to really watch, then how do they respond to your no thank you? How do they respond when you set boundaries? How do they, treat people? Is it the same as the way they treat you, or is it different? Do you really fully know people? Because believe me, my aunt and I have watched many crime shows and stuff, and so we were talking about how, a lot of those really serial killers like Dahmer and stuff were actually very attractive people that people really gravitated to, and said they were really average guys that just kind of, they never really would have suspected. So that's why I really deep dive into researching people and humanity, the way that Jane Goodall kind of like studied the gorillas and the chimpanzees. Well, I study humans and relationships and behavior, communication, and the ascension process, which is why my ancestors and the Holy Spirit said that I need to keep pushing forward in spite of all the obstacles that are wanting to shut me up. So if you're attempting to communicate and you are not being listened to, you are being misperceived by that person on purpose. Now, sometimes they are ignorant. They don't have the eyes to see or the ears to hear or the wisdom that they need. And so you have to give that grace. But then once you keep watching, and if they keep repeating that pattern after you've already approached it to them and you've directly asked them to stop, well, then you know that there is something else going on, whether it's a childhood wound, whether it's a mental, illness, whether it is a demonic entity or an attachment, that if you're watching the patterns and every time you try to intervene and set that boundary or set that, standard, and you're noticing the very weird, strange ways that they behave to you, well, then that's your sign that you need to kind of create that distance and that space for your own safety. You are talking to someone other than the person who is there, and that's why they're not listening. We have people who have given their souls because of the pain, the suffering, the hurts, the traumas, being trapped in their own skin and not feeling like they can be themselves or speak their truth, and they end up giving up. And then that allows that vessel, that biped carbon AI based life form, to have walk-in souls that are not of the light be able to jump into that vessel, and now, whoa, they can do all kinds of crazy stuff, because now the demon has an actual physical, tangible vessel that they can really start, doing stuff. And so you have to know when you're talking to an enlightened soul that is activated and in purpose versus someone that I call an NPC for my video gamers, which is they're just like they're not meant to help you in some way. They are meant to either attack, to get you to detach from your own center and core, or try to distract you, or steal from you in some way, whether it's energy, money, whatever, vitality. So you have to learn that whatever vessel is sitting in front of you, you really don't know who is operating their crown chakra and sending the messages into that vessel, because I also have had family members who practice necromancy and I didn't even know what the heck that was. So it's a scarier world than the children are prepared for, because obviously the evil ones don't want the kids to be prepared and armed to guard themselves, which is why I created the Starseed Launch Program, as well as the Billionaire from Your Bedroom program, because my whole goal is that the Starseed Launch Program helps you get mentally, spiritually, and emotionally and financially prepared, because you have to be energetically ready in order to actually launch, right? So the Starseed launch program and then the billionaire from your bedroom are kind of go hand in hand. The Starseed launch program is your foundational skills that you will need before you actually start the business and get it up and running and get it going. I didn't get to just walk in one day and say, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. No, I had to earn it through working out from all my karmic debt. Because believe me, I am sure that I had lifetimes where I came down here and I just lived it up and I played dirty and I did all the bad stuff. And then this lifetime, God said, okay, you're going to start off on the hardest mode possible to clear and purge as much as you can in order, when the time is right, for you to then step up to lead. Because I've been spending all my time helping people at the back of the pack, and I don't mean that to insult anybody, but usually that's my veterans, it's my disabled people, PTSDs, the autistic communities, Down syndromes, the single moms that are struggling without support, the transgender and sexually abused that have been tormented, right? And they just want peace, they just want love, and I can understand the pansexual philosophy, which is that you love the soul of the other person and you don't care about the body parts, because we've traumatized these vessels so horribly, including mine, because we violate our own selves, and we have to learn more self-love. So I don't have the same sort of restrictions and mindset that everybody else has. Mine is a very inclusive, all-encompassing, communal type living, where I'm not saying I know everything. I'm just saying I am an example of the truth, the way, and the life. Whether people want to believe that or not, just because I have tattoos. I mean, believe me, I've had little old ladies who have seen me out, my bathing suit with my kids, just being me, and then all of a sudden I'll get some snide comment about how I shouldn't be wearing that, and I make a bad role model. And another one, I would walk past on the street and I watched her like clutch her purse like I was gonna steal this poor lady's purse just because I had tattoos. Like the mindsets that are out there still. Yes, we have some people that are very forward-thinking, visionaries that are out there at the front of the pack, leading the way. But then we still have a lot of people that are still in transition and in resistance to the blessings and the evolution that the world is going through, whether they like it or not. They're either going to die with the 3D old patriarchal ways of the world, or they're going to step into the new earth and have no fear, no judgment, no condemnation, and just unconditional love, spreading beauty and happiness and joy wherever we can, and sharing our gifts. Because what I'm good at, you might not be good at, but what you might be really good at, I might not be good at that, right? Like, I don't know anything about vehicles, and I have this really cool guy that I used to work with, and he was a whiz, like wizard with machines, and he would help me out. He would work on my car, and I'd hang out and talk with his wife, or talk with his daughter, and play with the dog, and and then I would pay him for his services. And so it's like building more of that networking and that community, and being like, hey, I'm not having any more kids, but I still have this stroller and this car seat. And then someone else can be like, hey, my cousin is going to be having a baby soon. I can swing by and pick that up from you. You know what I mean? That kind of vibe is what I think that we are really trying to embrace when we're moving forward in the evolution of humanity. So, it's really important for us to be actively listening and not just jumping to conclusions, because believe me, I have people that will want to help me, but they're not really wanting to help me. They're wanting to control me and tell me what I have to do or what I should do. And I'm like, I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. My source is God, the Holy Spirit, and my ancestors. So if my grandma Bobby says, you're not doing that, I'm like, yes, ma'am. If, my papa says, young lady, you know better than that, don't you dare do that again. Yes, sir. Okay. Now I'm trying to get into not just being like the soldier, but also getting to then relax and to enjoy being a human. I have spent my whole life having to be, I hate to say forced servitude, but I did it voluntarily, but the way people would treat me and the way they would respond, and then they were trying to kill me on top of it, and I'm just like, Lord, like, I'm supposed to do this with joy in my heart. How am I supposed to do this with joy in my heart when this is what I'm dealing with? And he said, welcome to my world. He's like, I'm sitting up here, energy source. I need you to actually do something. Don't just point it out and say, can someone please take care of that? Where's the men? Can someone please clean up on aisle 5? Like, that one needs to be put in their place. And yes, men want that role, but they also want to have fun. They also want to be nurturing. They also want to love. They also want to be soft and kind-hearted and not be judged and condemned and criticized and beat up or murdered or accused of being whatever. So my philosophy is I want to help everybody learn how to stand within their divinity as a single, celibate, sober, sovereign, celebrated, and supported cosmic being. I think that formula, I mean, if you can accomplish that formula, you're gonna attract in your perfect mate in a heartbeat. You have to be in the right energy. You have to develop the skills. You have to put in the work. This body was designed and created and crafted very carefully. And it took a lot of effort, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, a lot of God breaking me down to my knees, saying, you got to stop this eating habit, because we're taught to self-soothe. And so for me, I would say, yes, my family can be all whatever addicts, some of them drugs, some of them food, some of them TV. So for me, I've always been trying to like mentally shift myself and said, okay, they say in psychology that you don't ever really cure your addiction, you just transfer it. So for me, trying to find this balance of not being out of my own natural rhythm, so then that way I can have that more productive quantum flow. And then I can make the leaps and the bounds that are necessary instead of feeling like people are holding me back and restricting me and forcing me to stay within the confines of their limited belief system. My little universe has different rules than your universe, okay? And I treat everybody as though they are the sovereign king or queen, emperor, empress, princess, prince, whatever it is that you prefer. That's the treatment that I give. I give it as though we are both protected children of God. But you have to do the work in order to actually have that protection. Too many people want to hide into my energy and under my auric field, and I'm like, no, guys, you have to figure out how to do that for yourself. We're all supposed to be our own little self-contained little bubble navigating around the globe, trying to activate and heal and help and repair the damage that's been done in different areas, because one person can't do it. Heck, 10 people can't do it, right? We need as many light warriors as we can possibly. So I'm just going to keep letting my light shine. I'll keep taking my candle to light your candle. And then you can take your candle and you can light others, and we can spread the light. Okay. So the communication can start to flow again once you've really assessed and observed that person. Because sometimes we are giving people way too much power over decision making in our minds. So there's a lot of times where I stopped myself from doing certain things because I was like, well, I can't do that because I'm a mom. I can't do that because I'm a leader in the church. I can't do that because I'm married. I can't do that because I have to take care of my parents. I can't take care of that because I have to help my children, right? Like, there's so many restrictions that are put on us. And at some point, God is going to say, detach, cord cut, cleanse, clear, repeat. Right now, it's me, you, your ancestors, and the universe. It's our private dance. And too many people are trying to butt in and like hip check God out of the way. My ancestors are like, get out of here, buddy. And you too. So if you would like help getting through whatever situation you're going through, please reach out at homeruns.consulting@gmail.com for a free consultation. So that way we can chat about your situation and how I might be able to help. And I look forward to talking with you in the next video. Have a great day.